And it seems like the thrust of it is be careful who you work with. And it is sort of directly targeted at Zoomers, which did you guys know that the younger generation, like next after Zoomers, called Generation Alpha? Yes. I don't think they deserve that. I don't know.
It's alphabetical. I think it just kind of goes to Z, then A, B, and C.
They could come up with a better A name than Alpha. So why that advice? What happened this year? Did people get in trouble for associations?
Absolutely. I mean, you saw
Michael and Charles.
You never know. Well, you saw a lot of this, and I still see a lot of this with my, contacts I have and people I keep up with that are Gen Zers, right? And they've gotten really heavily involved in politics at an early age, and they've chosen to associate with groups or people or make statements online that have absolutely affected their work history and will continue to, and probably will forever, unless something dramatic happens. I'm 37, and I've done a lot of stupid stuff in my 20s. I think most people have. And politics is a very serious thing. And on top of that, it's very highly documented. And so if I can only imagine if my life was so highly documented in my 20s, how much of a disaster it would be, And so you had things like, I'm going to go ahead and name names just because we're here. But like you had the Nick Fuentes incident with Pale Horse, right? Which is the umbrella organization for like True Texas Project, Texas Scorecard, Texas, all the Texas Vaccine Choice, Texas Strong Boys, blah, blah, blah. And the Nick Fuentes incident happened, and it brought a lot of people, journalists, especially lefty journalists, putting the whole organization and their people under a magnifying glass. And you had two young individuals specifically who had a very, very aggressive, some would call anti-Semitic, Twitter history and social media history. And based on everything I've seen, they were terminated from the organization. And they're basically persona non grata in politics. They're in their early 20s. They're never going to get a very serious job in politics, probably for the rest of their lives, because of what they said in their 20s. And so that's kind of what I was referring to when, should be careful who you associate with. A lot of this also is these kids, they should be guided better by whoever hires them or whoever's leading them to say, hey, like, don't say this, or hey, you need to clean up this, or hey, let's talk about your future. But these kids one of them specifically was talked out of finishing out college. He told me he had one semester left, and he was talked out of finishing college to go work for an organization making $45,000 a year. I was speechless. I was like, are you serious? And he's like, yeah, they told me I should just drop out. It was like a once in a lifetime opportunity. And he's like knocking doors and like moving furniture and all this stuff. And I'm like, this is, are you serious? And I say this as somebody that didn't go to college. I didn't go to college, but you have one semester left, just wrap it up, finish it. And he's left from the org, and now he's got, you can't Google his name without a bunch of bad articles coming up about him. And he has no degree to show for it.
Can't he just go back to college and finish that one semester?
I assume so, but again, it's like,
I don't want to. I mean, you're correct, but it seems like in that situation, was it not a once in a lifetime opportunity where they're just blowing smoke?
Absolutely not. He's knocking doors and, block walking, handing out flyers. I mean, Charles and anybody else know that worked in politics, these opportunities come up every 5 minutes. So everybody needs a door knocked for some stupid politician or some stupid org, right? So yeah, it wasn't once in a lifetime opportunity, and he had a non-titled position as far as I know, running some social media and some stuff. And I assume he can just go back and finish, but again, you Google his name and it just comes, it's a total social, it's a total disaster for him online.
Well, I think you see that with so many kids nowadays who are just chronically online, and they don't realize, the ones, not speaking of this kid in particular, but the kids who are saying and doing things, because I know you had to tweet about that, about how, people are sharing memes and stuff that are going to come back and bite them. And I'm of the age where graduating high school and going into college, we were transitioning from like MySpace to Facebook, but it wasn't wildly popular. Like people were still carrying around digital cameras and like disposable cameras. Like we were in that era. So that stuff, while there's some of it, it's not as bad as this next generation who are just chronically online and everything is there. And so many of them are so politically active at such a young age, and they have such dug in positions without really knowing anything, that it makes it, I would think it's going to make it very hard for a lot of them down the road to backtrack. I mean, you can grow in the public eye. I don't think there's a problem with that. But just the way that some people are putting their ideas out there at a young age on social media and everywhere, I think it makes it really hard for them to back away from that or just become a different person as they get older because of their online footprint.
Yeah, everybody on this call, we're blessed that our youth wasn't highly documented. Everything we did is basically erased. If you had a cringy MySpace, it's gone, right? If you had a cringy blogger account, it's gone. Zanga, gone, right? All these things are gone. And but these kids, I mean, even if you delete or wipe your Twitter, it's still archived somewhere. You could still pull it. Even if you delete or wipe your Facebook, it's still archived. Or some journalist has screenshot it, right? And so, you know, in my 20s, I had a lot of horrible opinions, of course, like cringy and goofy opinions, as many do. And so these kids do too. And like you said, they're all chronically online, and they're more, you know, I found really what's really common with these Zoomers is that they're more interested in being popular online than they are in like making money or thinking about their future. They just want to say really, really edgy stuff, get noticed, get a bunch of likes, and then they get canceled or something worse happens.
Yeah, I was gonna say the dynamic hasn't changed much for 20-year-olds. I was a disaster in my 20s, so like if I had a Twitter account in my 20s, I'd probably be in the same shape as these kids. But that kind of brings up the question that the position of leadership becomes even more critical, right? Because they got to kind of the older generation kind of has to shepherd these kids and coach them up and make sure they're not doing something wrong. And like in the Fuentes case, and I know those guys, so I don't want to speak badly of them, but somebody made the call that was a good call. Like let's have this meeting, and it backfired big time on him.
Yeah, and it wasn't even the first meeting. He'd been there twice, you know, and it's one thing to hold a bad meeting, but you catch up all these kids in the process. They get collateral damage from this whole thing, you know, and they did. The two young people lost their jobs, and the rest are like, many are still permanently going to be affected. And, you know, I talk about scarlet letters. I mean, imagine working for this organization and you want to grow on beyond it. Where do you go? Who's going to hire you? You know, who do you go work for? You can go work for one of their adjacent organizations or a politician they own, but that's it. You're done. Nobody else is going to hire you.
And I think the problem, especially for those who want to get out of politics and go into the regular workforce, with how, you know, the corporate culture is today, they Google your name and see that, then you're definitely not getting a job. I mean, and you're just kind of
every HR department has some liberal white woman running it, right? And she's immediately Googling you, and you're done at that point.
So, I mean, is it totally unredeemable? Because, you know, we are talking about politics, and I think it was 2 weeks ago, some twink was having gay sex on the Senate floor of the U.S. Congress, right? And that guy's gone, but wasn't it Lindsey Graham's staffer? Right? Was that? Am I making
the guy? No, it was a different senator, or maybe he was even a congressman. It wasn't Lindsey Graham. Lindsey Graham was mentioned in something in regards to that, but it wasn't his staffer.
He had a crush on Lindsey Graham. He was waiting for Lindsey Graham. And Lindsey Graham doesn't have kids, so make that.
Or maybe Lindsey Graham was waiting for him.
But I mean, politicians have. I mean, it seems like politics and stuff goes. People do stupid stuff all the time, and they're just like, I don't know. The public forgets, right?
Yeah, that's a good point. Like, time heals all wounds, right? And I think also we'll get to the point where so many people will have so much sketchy history that it'll get to the point where either people are a little more forgiving about stuff, or the Zoomers young people just start to wise up and they just stop posting so much of their thoughts.
Or the Zoomers take control, and then they
and it's themselves. Like just whatever, right? Yeah, I mean, there's a politician we wrote about, Shiloh Platts, who he ran for office for 24 hours, and we searched his background, and he had his Twitter account was filled with likes about all these like softcore porn models, and a bunch of business owners had alleged that he ripped them off, and he admitted to being a meth addict or something to that effect. And so we wrote it up, and he resigned, I think, the same day. So he literally, his political career was literally 24 hours. And to your point about people kind of moving on and forgetting, he started a podcast or a show, and you got Andy Hopper that's going to appear on it sometime here this month or next month, and so like you said, people don't care to a point. It's kind of it kind of just moves on. But I think maybe that's another thing about the grassroots. They just kind of, as long as you're pushing their narrative, they don't really care who you are or what you've done.